Marcus Aurelius Meditations, a classical translation by George Long. Book 1. From my grandfather Verus, I learned good morals and the government of my temper. From the reputation and remembrance of my father, modesty and manly character. From my mother, piety and beneficence, and abstinence, not only from evil deeds, but even from evil thoughts, and further, simplicity in my way of living, far removed from the habits of the rich. From my great-grandfather, not to have frequented public schools, and to have had good teachers at home, and to know that on such things a man should spend liberally. From my governor, to be neither of the green nor of the blue party at the games and the circus, nor a partisan either of Palmilarius or Scartarius at the gladiators' fight. From him too I learned endurance of labor, and to want little, and to work with my own hands, and not to meddle with other people's affairs, and not to be ready to listen to slander. From Dionysius, not too busy myself about trifling things, and not to give credit to what was said by miracle workers and jugglers about incantations and the driving away of demons, and such things, and not to breed quails for fighting, nor to give myself up passionately to such things, and to endure freedom of speech, and to have become intimate with philosophy, and to have been a hearer, first of Bacchius, then of Tandasus and Marcianus, and to have written dialogues in my youth, and to have desired a plank bed and skin, and whatever else of the kind belongs to Grecian discipline. Number 7. From Rusticus, I received the impression that my character required improvement in discipline, and from him I learned not to be led astray to sophic emulation, nor to writing on speculative manners, nor to delivering little hortatory orations, nor to showing myself off as a man who practices much discipline or does benevolent acts in order to make a display, and to abstain from rhetoric and poetry and fine writing, and not to walk about in the house in my outdoor dress, nor to do other things of the kind, and to write my letters with simplicity, like the letter that Rusticus wrote to Sanusa, to my mother, and with respect to those who have offended me by words or done me wrong, to be easily disposed, to be pacified and reconciled, as soon as they have shown a readiness to be reconciled, to read carefully, and not to be satisfied with superficial understanding of a book, nor hastily to give my assent to those who talk overmuch. And I am indebted to him for being acquainted with the discourses of Epictetus, which he communicated to me out of his own collection. From Apollonius, I learned freedom of will and undeviating steadiness of purpose, and to look for nothing else, not even for a moment, except to reason, and to always be the same in sharp pains, on the occasion of the loss of a child, and in long illness, and to see clearly in a living example that the same man can be both resolute and yielding, and not peevish in giving his instruction, and to have had before my eyes a man who clearly considered his experience and his skill in expounding philosophical principles as the smallest of his merits. And from him I learned how to receive from friends what are esteemed favors, without being either humbled by them or letting them pass unnoticed. Number 9. From Sextus, a benevolent disposition and an example of family governed in a fatherly manner, and the idea of living comfortably to nature and gravity without affection, and to look carefully at the interest of friends, and to tolerate ignorant persons, and to those who form opinions without consideration. He had the power of readily accommodating himself to all, so that intercourse with him was more agreeable than any flattery. And at the same time, he was most highly venerated by those who associated with him, and he had the faculty both of discovering and ordering, in an intelligent and methodological way, the principles necessary for life, and he never showed anger or any other passion, but was entirely free from passion and also affection, and he could express approbation without noisy display, and he possessed much knowledge without ostentation. 10. From Alexander the grammarian, to refrain from fault finding, and not in a reproachful way, to chide those who uttered any barbarous, sophistic, or strange sounding expression, but dexterously to introduce the very expression which ought have been used, and in the way of answer or giving confirmation, or joining in an inquiry about the thing itself, not about the word, or by some other fit suggestion. 11. From Fonto I learned to observe what envy and duplicity and hypocrisy are in a tyrant, and that generally those among us are called patricians, are either deficient or paternal affection. 12. From Alexander the Platonic, who frequently, nor without necessity to say to anyone, or to write in a letter, that I have no leisure, nor continually to excuse the neglect of duties required by our relation to those with whom we live, by alleging urgent occupations. 13. From Catullus, not to be indifferent when a friend finds fault, even if he should find fault without reason, but to try to restore him to his usual disposition, and to be ready to speak well of teachers, as it is reported by Dominitus and Atherdonidas, and to love my children truly. 14. From my brother Severus, to love my kin, and to love truth, and to love justice. And through him I learned to know Thrasea, Helvidius, Cato, Dion, Brutus, and from him I received the idea of a politely in which there is the same law for all, a politely administered with regard to equal rights and equal freedom of speech, and the idea of a kingly government which respects most of all the freedom of the governed. I learned from him also consistency and undeviating steadiness in my regard for philosophy, and a disposition to do good, and to give to others readily, and to cherish hopes, and to believe that I am loved by my friends. And in him I observe no concealment of his opinions with respect to those whom he condemned, and that his friends had no need to conjecture what he wished or did not wish, but it was quite plain. 15. From Maximus I learned self-government, and not to be led aside by anything, and cheerfulness in all circumstances, as well as in illness, and a just admixture in the moral character of sweetness and dignity, and to do what was set before me without complaining. I observed that everybody believed that he thought as he spoke, and that in all that he did he never had any bad intention, and he never showed amazement and surprise, and it was never in a hurry, and never put off doing a thing, nor was perplexed nor dejected, nor did he ever laugh to disguise his vexation, nor, on the other hand, was he ever passionate or suspicious. He was accustomed to do acts of beneficence, and was ready to forgive, and was free from all falsehood, and he presented the appearance of a man who could not be diverted from right, rather than a man who had been improved. I observed, too, that no man could ever think that he was despised by Maximus, or ever venture to think himself a better man. He had also the art of being humorous in an agreeable way. That is the reading of Marcus Aurelius Meditations 1 through 15. This start of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations really shows us something that I think is very impactful to Iron Fathers out there. Marcus starts Meditations not really by flexing and talking about his own wisdom, but he's giving thanks to all of the men that participated in making him the man that he is. He lists what he learned from each man in his life, whether it was patience, humility, or discipline. Now, this is where I'm trying to develop an Iron Father council. and I want you to think about the men in your life that have made you who you are today. If you have a chance, thank those men. Recognize that you are not self-made, but you are responsible for what you do with the lessons that they pass down to you. Now, some of us got wisdom from strong men, but some of us got wisdom because we had to learn it from the mistakes of others. And sometimes it's a combination of both. Some of us only got examples of what not to do. Either way, you inherit a playbook for your life. The question is, will you use it to recalibrate, or will you waste it as you continue on at this next journey in your life? If you have any comments, please leave them below. How has the writing of Marcus Aurelius impacted you today? Was there anything in just the first 15 in book 1 that may have resonated and stood out to you? Like and subscribe to the channel for more reflections that are on the meditations of Marcus Aurelius as I slowly read through the book and as we glean out some of the things from this Stoic classic that may be applicable to our lives today. Thank you for joining.